What's up, folks? I'm here brewing a Giada Font of Hope deck. I don't know what language that is, but Giada Font of Hope. She's a 2/2 angel for two. One white pip, one colorless. 2/2 flying vigilance. Those stats aren't the greatest, but what she does do is each other angel you control enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter for each angel you already control. So it sees the other angels that are in play, it gets that much bigger. Also, she is a mana dork. She can tap for a white mana, but only to cast angel spells. So Giada is essentially an angel build. What I will say about Giada is she is fairly simplistic. You're casting a bunch of evasive creatures, turning sideways, swinging for combat damage, lethality, right? Like you want to kill your opponents with combat damage. So you're going to put a bunch of angels. Now there are so many angels. If I were to I was just looking at braids because you know what, they just unbanned that card, and that could be quite disgusting. Angel type creature. Let's have a look here. Search. Let's also say mono white. White only. Search. There are 212 angel creatures, what seems like, that you have access to. Now, obviously, you can't put all 212 angels in your deck. So if you have some pet angels, go ahead, include them. What I would recommend to folks is to look at your meta that you're playing, and if there's a certain, let's see, there's a certain strategy of play that's affecting your meta. It's creature based, it's control based, it's yada yada, whatever it is. So you can probably find an angel to help you through that meta. Okay, there's 212 of them. There's got to be some good ones that can do some good things. But for me, I've gone to choose about 30, I would say. There's 35 creatures in this deck. Some are utilities. I say maybe a handful are utilities. The rest are angels. So these are the angels I chose. The deck itself is a decent split. As even of a split as you can get between creatures, uh, general spells, and lands, I would imagine. Yeah. So I got about 31 lands, 34 just other spells, and 35 creatures. That's a fairly even split. Now, the one thing I will say about this deck, since it's a creature-based deck, it's susceptible to sweeper effects. Let's go over the deck quickly. We'll start off with Esper Sentinel. I don't know if I'm going to go through every card. I'll just scroll through it quickly so you can see what I'm talking about. So Esper Sentinel here is obvious for card draw in mono white. There's Giada the General, Heliod Suncrown. He's sort of one of these creatures that allows you to gain life and add counters to your creatures. Inspiring Overseer. Not a fan of this art, but I don't have to be. This is a 2/1 flyer that draws your card when it comes in. Now, if you get this late game, you have a bunch of angels, it'll be big. And it's also good early on because it's a card draw. Metropolis Reformer, because when this is dealt damage, you gain that much life. Plus, you have hexproof, plus it's flying and vigilance. And plus, it usually comes in with a few +1/+1 counters. Did I say plus a few times there? So again, I'm not going to go through every angel in here. I'm just going to go through this is Starheim Aspirant, not an angel, but helps you to cast angels. All these angels have a purpose. This I wouldn't say is the most optimal synergistic angel build, but there's a lot of good quality angels, and you'll find yourself in a position to win. Linvala, Keeper of Silence, because why should your opponent's creatures have activated abilities? Nobody's going to like you if you play this card, by the way. Merchant of Truth, Sublime Archangel. I've won a few games just using this card. You have a bunch of angels and just attack with one, probably your biggest one with the most counters. Let's say you have a 6/6 and you have 4 or 5 creatures, all of a sudden it's an 11/11 attacking creature. Raven Watcher, Angel Sanctions. Again, these are all angels that do something or command a presence or command some kind of a removal. Herald of War, incidentally, is one of the angels I think is an auto include in this deck. Well, not just for the reason that it's an angel, but when it attacks, you put a +1/+1 counter on it, and all humans and angel spells cost 1 less to cast for each +1/+1 counter on it. Now, when it comes in, if Giada's in play, at least that's 1 counter automatic. If you have a bunch of angels, let's say 3 or 4, you're going to get 3 or 4 counters. That means your other angel spells are going to be 4 colorless mana less. Karmic Guide, because why not? That's a classic card. Lyra Dawnbringer, what a great general that is. You could even, run her as a general. Windshaper, Plaintar? I just butchered that name. I apologize if anybody's triggered by that, but I'm sorry. I'm not the greatest of readers, if you can't tell. Anyway, this card, I've caught people off guard. Those players in your play group that like to play and win with Crater Behemoth, you have this card in play, and when they cast it and go, I'm going to attack you to kill you, you're going to flash this in and say, no, you're not. You're going to send all these creatures to somebody else. Great card. I really only have this card in here for Crater Hoof type effects. Or when people try to alpha strike you with one big attack turn. Sanctuary Warden, Valkyrie, Harbinger, Angel of Serenity. I really like this old school angel for a few reasons. Not because the mana cost is pretty high, and the body on it's meh. It's okay for an angel. It could be better. But what it does is exiles 3 of your opponent's creatures. Obviously, until this leaves play, but still, you can get 3 threats off the board, or you could mix and match. You can take one of your opponent's threats and pull 2 creatures from your yard. I like to use Angel Serenity as more of a recursion type effect. So I'm playing this and pulling 3 angels out of my yard because maybe at one point I've gotten the board swept and I have a bunch of angels in my yard. So I'll pull them up, put them under Angel Serenity. So when this dies, I get to return those back to my hand, which is oftentimes a good thing for me. Bruna, the other half of Bruna, Gisella's in the deck. I think you've already seen it. Maria Shepherd is another way to recur. Safari Skyblade, because, who doesn't like a 7/7 flying lifelink? Gives you other flying creatures indestructible. Sarah's Emissary and Avacyn Angel of Hope. I believe that's the last angel. It is. So those are all the angels that are in the deck. Now, incidentally, I was kind of been brewing on the side an Avacyn type deck. And the way I'm brewing Avacyn is just basically mana ramp. It's a bunch of mana rocks and all kinds of super effects. Destroy all permanents, destroy all creatures, exile all graveyards, just constant, not that exiling graveyards matters with Avacyn, but basically a lot of sweeper effects. She has indestructible, so if you Wrath the God the board, all your stuff is indestructible. Meanwhile, your opponents cry salty tears when you wipe their boards. Anyways, I've been kind of brewing that as an aside for another deck. And then we get into the non-creature spells. So Pearl Medallion. This reduces. You don't see any text here. I don't know why they did this, but this is those art cards. Pearl Medallion reduces your cost of white spells by 1 colorless, and also costs 2. Light Tutor, Land Tax, Path to Exile. I won't go through any. Sensei's Top is one of those cards that I love to put in every deck. It synergizes really well with Land Tax and Scroll Rack. Where's my Scroll Rack? All right, Scroll Rack. And there you are. So if you have Land Tax out and Scroll Rack, let's assume it's a perfect world and you have both of them in play, and you have less lands than your opponents. On your upkeep, you activate Land Tax, go get 3 lands, draw another card. Now you have 4 cards in your hand. If you have had any more, So let's say you had, for argument's sake, 3 more cards. Now you're at 7 cards in your hand. Well, you can scroll rack the whole thing away and draw 7 more cards. So land tax gets you cards in your hand that you can scroll rack to actually put other cards into your hand, sort of like a quasi draw. Now, what I will say about scroll rack and land tax, and as well as Sensei's Top, you can get into these scenarios where people like to call it top locked. Where if you look at the top 3, let's say you need a land, you look at your top 3, can't find one, so it's all just action, and you have to put it back, and now you can't do anything because you know what your next 3 cards are. Maybe on your next turn when you draw one, you can look at one card deeper. But bottom line, you get into these scenarios where you get a bit locked. Same thing can happen with scroll rack and land tax, where you got 7 cards, you dump 7 cards, you trade them for the top of your deck, and now you have these 7, let's say mostly land cards on the top of your deck. So what you need in this case is to have shuffle effects. I'll go over that later when we get to the land base. But it's important if you're running Sensei's Top and scroll rack type effects, you have shuffle effects in your deck. Lightning Greaves, because who doesn't like Lightning Greaves? Duelist Heritage. Now here's a card that gives attacking creatures double strike. If you haven't seen this card before and you're running white, you should put it in your white deck. Because not only does this trigger on your attack step, it triggers on every attack step. So every time a creature attacks, you can give it double strike. One creature, right? Whenever 1 or more creatures attack, you may have target attacking creature, so 1 creature gain double strike until the end of the turn. You can use this card to politic your way through a game and say, hey man, you see your creature there, if you go attack our friend over there whose board state is getting a little crazy, I'll give your creature double strike. Let's, player removal is a type of control. It's also a way to win the game. But this is a great card. Flawless Maneuver. Now, I think is Flawless Maneuver the first? No, it was Grand Crescendo. So I have about 4 of these effects in the deck. So I said before that one of the softer points of the deck is the fact that the deck is susceptible to sweepers. Now, the way to protect that is to give your creatures all indestructible. That's why Grand Crescendo's in here. The X part of this spell doesn't really matter. I hardly ever use it. I don't think I've ever used it while playing this deck. What it is more than anything else is that instant speed for 2 white mana, all my creatures get indestructible. So you have a bunch of angels, and the one thing that happens when you're playing Giada is that your board state starts to look troublesome very quickly, and people are like, oh darn, let's sweep the board. And players start, hey, do you have a sweeper? Do you have a sweeper? And everybody starts to conspire against sweeping your board state. So you need spells like Grand Crescendo to help protect that. That's why you get spells like Flawless Maneuver, because this also gives creatures you control gain indestructible to the end of turn. This is particularly better because if you control Giada, this is free. Generous Gift, because these are removal spells. Don't sleep on Oblation, because Oblation can be used defensively. When I say defensively, you can use it when someone targets one of your permanents, and you get 2 cards out of it. This is I've used this a number of times where you have, let's say you have Avacyn in play, and one of the only ways to deal with Avacyn is to exile her. So she's going to eat up all the Path to Exiles and Swords to Plowshare type effects. So the minute someone puts one of those spells on the stack, targeting your things, whether it's Avacyn or otherwise, you can cast Oblation on your own thing, shuffle it in your deck, spell fizzles, you draw 2 cards. That is pretty good. The other side of that is that if you're playing against somebody, let's say someone's resolved a 1 ring, which is uber powerful, it's a way to get rid of the 1 ring. Yes, you're going to give your opponent 2 cards. Sometimes you got to do what you got to do to get rid of a troublesome permanent. So don't sleep on Oblation is what I'm trying to say. Instant speed, 3 mana. It's lost favor. I keep harping on this card because this is such a good card. It's lost a lot of favor because of its mana cost. the virtue of Commander has gotten to a point where it's a very low curve, and people want to play spells early and fast. And 3 mana is a spell that people put to the side nowadays because 3 mana is too much. If you look at your mana rock situation, most people don't run the 3 mana rocks anymore because 3 mana is just almost too much for a mediocre type play. But still, this is a great defensive and offensive card, and run it in your white decks. Search for Glory because, who doesn't want to search for a legendary card? I have lots of legendary angels that I can search for with this card. I also have snow permanents, so I can go fetch a land with this as well. Sparring Regime grows your creatures one at a time and essentially gives like a quasi vigilance. Teferi's Protection, because this is the ultimate way to protect you and your board state, is just to not be there. Peace out. I'm out. Teferi's Protection. I don't know how many times I've done that, and that makes you feel so good when someone gets to a state where the whole board, everybody's troublesome. Let's reset the board, play some sort of massive farewell type effect, and then you respond by saying Teferi's Protection. I'm out. Now I'm gonna suggest something here that's dangerous, that can get you into trouble. Okay, so be wary, but you can, if you're up for it, run massive land destruction. Let's say an Armageddon. You play Armageddon. You hold your priority to Teferi's Protection. You peace out while everybody else loses all their lands. Now that will get you disliked in your local play group. I don't suggest you try it. I've tried it in mine, but the guys I play with are very cutthroat, and they can sniff out when something's going bad. And typically, they do not allow an Armageddon to resolve. And if you are one of those Armageddon players, and I am from time to time, shame on you. So shame on me too. But that's a combo you can use with Teferi's Protection. Urza's Incubator, because, reduce creature cost. The One Ring. This should be an auto include in all Commander decks. It can go in every deck. You should play this. If you don't have it, proxy it, because it's way too expensive for people to buy. I think eventually this card will be put maybe even on a ban list. We've banned it in our local play group because the guys are tired of this accelerating folks into wins. Now, I will say this. If you're playing in any game of Commander and there's fire trucks. I don't know if you guys can hear that, but anyway, if you are playing in any game of Commander and you're outpacing your opponents in draw, so you've drawn 5 or plus more cards than your opponents, you're most likely gonna end up winning the game. Not all the time, but the more cards you draw, the more probability you have of winning the game. And most folks build fairly synergistic decks. If you've outpaced your opponents by 10 cards or more, you're most likely going to win. And in our play group, if you've drawn 10 cards and you're not winning, something's wrong. This is a really powerful card. We've banned it. Now, you can still run it in your deck, but we say when you play it, it's a 4-mana draw spell. Draw 1 card at sorcery speed. Is essentially what it is when we play it in our play group. This Chroma's Will is one of those control my board state type effects. It also can finish a game. If I have a number of angels, it can give all my angels double strike and lifelink and vigilance and indestructible. It's a great card. Court of Grace, because more angels and allows you to draw cards. Moat. Now here's a card that in this deck shines completely, because almost 90% of all my creatures have flying. So they have evasion. This says non-flying creatures cannot attack. So you put this out, nobody can attack you unless they have flyers, and you have an army of angels that can attack at will. The only problem with Moat is the cost. This is a cost prohibitive card. Now there's a debate out there whether or not these cards should be considered as ban worthy or put on some kind of list because they're not accessible to folks. What I say to that is make it accessible. Get yourself a proxy and play with it. I don't think anyone should have a problem with proxies, especially when it comes to cards like Moat, because this is unattainable for most folks. Nobody's going to go spend thousands of dollars for a niche card to try out in their deck. So go out and just put a proxy in. As long as people know what mode is and what it does and the rest of that jazz, go ahead, photocopy, put it in a sleeve and put it in your deck. Smothering Tithe, because whoever designed this card broke the game a bit. Aether Spark, I just wanted to try it. It's a nice piece of equipment. It draws your cards. It can mana accelerate you, so why not? Trouble in Pairs, because this just got pulled off the watch list. This is supposed to allow you to draw cards. The verdict is still out for me on this card. Haven't played with it enough, but it's in here. Memory Jar for more card draw. Draw 7 effects are really good. Vanquisher's Banner, Anthem Effect, Immortal Sun, because I don't play Planeswalkers, and I don't like it when you do either. So, no Planeswalkers for you. Well, you can cast your Planeswalkers, you just can't activate your abilities. Not if Immortal Sun is around. Also, it is an Anthem effect, and it draws you an additional card in each one of your turns, and your spells cost less. So this is like a quasi Planeswalker. This is a Planeswalker statue is what this is. It just gives you static effects. So it's a good card. Approach of the Second Sun, I believe, is my last spell in the deck. Approach of the Second Sun is in here just to give me an alternative win con. If you can manage to win with Approach, then good on you. Bravo, golf clap. I tend to enjoy trying to win with this card. I've done it enough times, and every time I've won it, it's always felt very gratifying to be able to pull it off. And most of the table is like, oh, it's great. We don't often see people win with Approach of the Second Sun, so that's awesome. Again, this is just in here to give myself an alternative win con. Let's say you're playing a really uber controlling group and just board sweepers and removal spells. And they've spent all their resources dealing with your board state. Okay, Approach the Second Sun can get you there too. And then we go to lands. You'll see a theme with my lands in this deck anyways. And yes, it's because it's mono white. Mono white's not the greatest of draw colors, but here we go. This land draws me a card. There's fetch land. I said I would talk about it, but I'll come back to the fetch lands in a second as shuffle effects. Best shuffle effects in the game, by the way. Another land that draws me a card. This shuffles and tutors. This allows me to recur stuff from the yard. Another draw land, another draw land, and another draw land. if you've caught on to a theme there. Shrine to Nyx, because Devotion to White is always a good thing. Snow Covered Plains, another draw card, another fetch land. So drawing cards, obviously in mono white, is an issue, and I've tried to put in a bunch of cards that do that. There are other ways you can draw in white, but then you're not playing angel spells. Like Mangara is one card that'll help you draw, but it's not an angel. So it doesn't really play into that theme. So I decided for this deck, I'd just do it via lands. Now let's talk about these fetch lands. When you have a Sensei's Top, let's say, and you've gotten into that scenario where you're kind of top locked, where you've looked at your next 3 cards, none of them help you, you need another land. So what you want to do when you have Sensei's Top and you're locked like that, you want to be able to shuffle your deck. And the best way to get shuffle effects going for you are fetch lands. And don't sleep on that. Being able to shuffle your deck is oftentimes very good. Not only if you're running a Sensei's Top, but if you're running cards like Scroll Rack and Land Tax. So you have Scroll Rack and Land Tax in play. You've just Land Taxed for 3 cards. You drew an extra card. You have 7 cards in hand. You really only want 1 or 2 of them, and the rest are just chafe or mostly lands. You can scroll rack those away, play a fetch land. You've drawn, let's say 6 new cards, 5 new cards. You shuffle away. Now you got a whole new top of your deck that if you have on your next turn, you can scroll rack away even more cards. Hopefully you're doing another land tax, putting another 3 lands. You see where I'm going with that? Shuffle effects are very good in your deck. It's a great way to really manipulate the top of your deck. Okay. Sometimes you don't know what's going on with the top of your deck, but if you're playing blue of Brainstorm, you've now drawn 3 cards. You have to put 2 cards on back on top, and let's say those 2 cards are not really relevant. Maybe it's early game and they're like a 7 drop and an 8 drop. Well, you don't need them right now, so you want to be able to shuffle. So shuffle effects, don't sleep on those. It's very healthy for your game and to improve your game to be able to shuffle your deck and change the top of your deck, especially if you know what's on there. Even more so in those cases. Anyway, so that's my deck. Giada, she's a lot of fun. There's no best way to build her or ultimate way, most synergistic and efficient way. She is just all of your angels that you have lying around, put them in your deck, shuffle up and play. Like, even if you just did that, you can have some success with Giada. Because Giada comes out on turn 2. And then on turn 3, you potentially have 4 mana. Linvalas come out. Anything with a 4 mana cost comes out at that point in time on turn 3. That's acceleration. And that can get you there real quick. I've oftentimes played the Segovian Angel. I think I took her out of this deck. She's not on this list. Segovian Angel is a 1-drop. I actually did change her for Esper Sentinel. But anyway, Segovian, and I'll leave this text up for you guys to read. But Segovian Angel is 1, then you play Giada, then you play another angel, let's say a Linvala. On turn 3, she sees 2 angels, she comes in. I think Linvala is a 2/4, so she would be a 4/6. And then on turn 4, you have a 4/6, a 2/2, and a 1/1. Right? 7 points of damage in the air on turn 4. That's considerable. That's a serious clock. Most people look at you at that point going, you know what? This is no bueno. We got to get rid of this. So, anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed that. If you have a Giada build, please share your thoughts. Go out and build her. She's a fun, evasive, aggressive commander type build. I know there's a few YouTubers out there that have put together deck lists on her. Go check those out, and I hope you guys enjoyed this. We'll talk to you soon. Ciao.